And we are live. The June 6, 2014 demo with the Transaction Pro importer and Karen Magno. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Gina.
Hi, everybody.
How's everyone doing this week?
Good.
Lovely.
I'm getting tired of payroll audits.
Beautiful
Well, I
weather
don't
here.
come help, but I'm only working like 3 days a week or 3 hours a week or 3 hours a day.
Well, Nancy, you should qualify that. That's 3 hours on the computer. You're not talking about what you're doing outside. I know it feels like play, but it is a little bit of work.
I have ached so bad. I swear, I have muscles that I forgot I had.
Or never knew you had.
Oh no, trust me. Some of these I've known I had, but I forgot about them.
Okay. Well, today our special guest is Karen Magno, the Transaction Pro importer. We're going to get a demo today. Happy to have you here, Karen. We're going to start out with a little demo on the desktop, and if we have time afterwards, we'll do a demo on the new QuickBooks Online.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen.
I have to tell you, I am so excited about this. I showed up last week thinking your demo was last week.
So thank you, Gina, for inviting me. I know Google Hangouts is a lot of work and doing them every week. I have not attended in a while, but I do watch a lot of them after the fact, and I really appreciate all that I learn because part of the reason why this product has been so successful is because of the fact over the years the QuickBooks Pro advisors and consultants have provided us a lot of great feedback. And if it hadn't been for them, I don't think the product would be where it's at today because we took a lot of their concerns and issues and built them into the product over time. And so basically what would happen is this is what our Transaction Pro importer product looks like. You would first have your QuickBooks company file open that you wanted to import into. And then what you would do is you would browse for an import file that you wanted to import. And it can be an Excel, CSV, text, Microsoft Access, or any ODBC database. So it's pretty powerful.
Nice.
So I will start, and just so you know, when you first start with Transaction Pro Importer, we install a bunch of sample documents and maps just to help people get started, because I know it can be very overwhelming when you're learning any new software. So we did this to make it easier for the user. So I'm going to do a sales receipt. And then what you can do is, because this is a text file, we work with all the different field delimiters, tab, comma, or pipe, so it's pretty flexible. And the most common record at the end of the line is a carriage record line fee, but we do support the other ones as well. And then what happens is you come in here to select your import type, and you can see we have all the different transaction types listed here. Quite a few of them. And then we also have at the bottom we have all the lists. So you can see we have quite a few. And so what you would do is you would say, okay, I want to import sales receipts. In this case is what we're going to do. And then what makes this tool so powerful is we have a lot of options. And so you just select your options button, and there's a lot of things like we can, instead of using the number that's in your import file, you can say I want QuickBooks to auto-sign the next sales receipt number. Another very common thing is, say for instance, you're bringing in data from another system and the names in the other system don't match up to what's in QuickBooks. You can import based upon an account number field in QuickBooks, as well as you can do that for vendors. You can do that as well for items. And you can do that for a general ledger account, which is very powerful, especially if you've taken over the books from another accountant, say, and you don't like the way that they're doing the chart of accounts. Instead of modifying your Excel file, you can just do a cross-reference and say, okay, this accountant had always posted things to petty cash, and instead I want all these to go to checking. And so it's pretty powerful. On journal entries, which I'm sure is very common when you're cleaning up QuickBooks company files, you have the ability to have your debits and credits in separate columns, or you can have them all in one column. Or, if you're importing say for instance you're importing data from another system, maybe the daily sales, and they don't have the offset account, say to cash. If you're importing a sales receipt, you can come in here and say, okay, I know my journal entry is going to be out of balance because the point of sale system only has all the credits. I want the debit to go, and you can specify the account, say checking here. And then another thing that we have is you can use custom fields. We have e-commerce, which is its whole other separate animal, but allows you to import most e-commerce files. They're a little different in the fact that they typically have a lot of additional elements. So this gives the users the ability to set different items for shipping, handling, discount, sales tax, as well as it allows them to say that their items are in columns or instead of in rows. So it's pretty powerful as far as all the different options. Another thing that accountants tend to like, and I like, is you have the ability to say, when I'm doing the import, I don't want you to add any new customers or accounts or items, which is really nice because you don't want to import an import file that has all the wrong items in it and then clutter up your item list if you know that your item list in QuickBooks is correct. We also have the ability to let me uncheck this. We have the ability to skip transactions with matching reference numbers. So, say for instance, you might have some duplicates in your import file. Transaction Pro will just skip them. You can do a replace, which is actually becoming more and more common. What we found is sometimes people will realize that they've used the wrong dates on their imports, or maybe they got to the beginning of the year and their data entry person used all 2013 dates on the first check run of the year. What they'll do is they'll just re-import the data and use the correct date. So it's pretty quite a lot of options here, and they're all in the help file. I'll show you where it is here. And you can see here we have a section all on program options.
Yeah, it opened a new window, Karen. We can't see.
Oh, sorry.
We're back to you.
No.
And if you want to hit your screen share and see if help comes up.
I'm going to try it again.
Okay.
And then I'll hit the screen share again.
Okay. Looks like it's not going to.
There we go. Something happened.
Okay, we're still seeing you.
Okay. All right. Well, it's
Come back to
a hard time. But anyways, I'm just going to close out of this. So let's go back to here. Okay. All right. So anyways, if you press the help button here, you'll see a full help file that goes through every single option here, as well as on our blog. And let me share that. Sorry, I'm just having a little bit of a delay between when the screen share comes up.
It's okay. Take your time.
While you're doing that, do all the options work for the online side too?
It does not.
Bummer.
The QuickBooks API is not as robust. QuickBooks Online, as well as we haven't had the product out as long. But I'm not. Here we go. Okay. There we go. Okay. All right. So basically, here's our website. Here's our blog here, and it's just blog.transactionpro.com. And what we've tried to do over time, and I apologize, the blog is a little messy. I need to do some work on it. But if you mouse over the how-to, we have all the different transaction types, and you can see, if you want to import a bank statement. Now, hopefully, this won't come in a pop-up window. We have a full article on every single import type. And what we do is we go through the mapping, and then we also talk a little bit about what sort of options that you might want to select. Hold on.
So that's you just started a new website, right? Is that the old website,
Well, this blog is still old. I still have to update it. Okay. But our new website, this is what our new website looks like here. So, and we've just pushed that live this week. So if you see any typos or links that are broken, let us know. But, you know, so here you can see your bank statement. Sorry, I keep clicking. And so you can see, you know, we go through every single step. So if you have a new client, feel free to copy and paste right from the website here. And, you know, a lot of people will take the data right from here and they'll copy and paste it into a Word document and provide it as a training module for their client. And so you can see, you know, we try and go through every single screen. And then the other thing that's important, and this is a pet peeve of mine, is we have users that will come in and on the options screen they'll just go check, 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 check. And that causes errors because, you know, some of the options, you know, might not, you know, they might not need, you know, like they don't want to use a customer cross-reference if they're importing a customer name. So they'll get an error and they get upset and it's like, why'd you check it? It's in the, you know, it's in the help file. But anyway, so we come over here, how to import, learn what options do. And we come through here and we have, you know, for instance, the cross-reference, which we talked about. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, this is always a good place to start. If you have any questions, we do have the help file, but I don't know about you, but I'm a lot more visual. And so this gives you more of an example of, you know, when you go to do the customer account cross-reference, for instance, it'll give you a screenshot and tell you exactly what field that we're looking at. So it just makes it a lot easier. And so, you know, so every single option's over here. And then we, you know, as well as we have, you know, featured posts and we have the most popular posts. So a lot of times you can just pop over here and you can see, you know, see what other people are doing basically. I always look at these top posts and pages because of the fact I get a flavor for what people are searching for. And you can see a lot of it is our invoices and e-commerce. So, so I'm just going to switch back to the importer.
And before you go ahead,
yep.
Dennis has a question.
Yes, what's the difference between version 4 and version 5?
There's a lot of differences. Let me show you something that is very attractive to consultants. We changed our whole activation scheme. And so what would happen is, say for instance, you work from home and you work from your office and you have 2 computers. And so you can come back, you know, say for instance you're working in your office and you go home and you're like, oh, I forgot to deactivate Transaction Pro in the office. You can just come here and then what you can do is on this activation screen.
We're not seeing your screen.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. No, when you say you can go here, that's an indicator.
Okay. All right. Well, it's not taking the pop-up. Let me just show you. So basically what would happen is you would come to the Transaction Pro importer. It would be an about or an activation button. And what you do is you select that, and then it comes up with a screen where you can see all your computers. And so I work from a lot of different places. And so say, for instance, right now I'm down on Cape Cod. And so what I'll do is, you know, my computer, you know, if I get down here and I'm like, I need Transaction Pro importer, I just click on the about or activate. I put in my login credentials, and I can deactivate my computer up in New Hampshire and then reactivate here. And so that also is helpful if you have computers that crash or if you're going out in the field and supporting your clients. So it just makes it so you have control over it.
So you're saying that, say for example, you could install a backup copy on, say, a portable, and then if you wanted to use the portable, you'd have to activate that and deactivate the desktop? Is that
That's
right?
correct. But you don't have to be on the original computer it was activated on. You can be on any computer.
Okay.
Even if the first computer's crashed, you can reactivate on a new machine.
Okay, in version 4 you can't do that, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And then we added, the big things that we added are bank statements and credit card statements, and it includes payee aliases. So so if you don't want to use the QuickBooks ones, you can use our, you know, payee aliases, and that's been a very common. The reason why people like it is because they have more control. You know, they can have multiple mappings on their, you know, on each of their. Say for instance, they have one bank account, or you know, say they bank with all one bank or one credit card company. The owner, certain of the owner's expenses may go to an owner's draw, but an employee it might go to an expense. And so it allows you to have a different alias, as many different alias maps as you need. and those are saved. And so when you come back, to do your next import, those are remembered.
Okay, I have another question. Is there an upgrade price? Say you have version 4, would you get a discount if you went to 5?
Definitely. Yep,
Okay.
it's if you go to our website and you go to our sitemap, you'll see this. There's a place where you can upgrade for $129.95. So that's a savings of $70.
Okay, I've got a bunch of questions, but I don't want to take them all right now. I mean, I don't think you finished your presentation yet, have you?
No, I'm only on the first screen. All right, so we'll go back
I'll hold my questions in.
So we'll go back to sales receipts. And so I'm just going to double check what I selected for options. I'm going to let QuickBooks auto assign sales receipt numbers. And then I'm just going to select save. Okay. All right. What happened is I had selected an option here, and I was in the middle, and I didn't select save. So okay, so we're going to hit next. And then what I really like is there's a lot of advanced features in here. So say for instance, this is your first import, and you want to make sure everything's going to go in correctly. I usually tell clients, want to just import one transaction, so you can highlight those that you don't want to import and select delete.
Nice, that's real nice.
The other thing that you can do is you can come in here. You can see these are older files, and so say for instance you noticed, oh, this is the wrong date. I want to come in here and I want to change this. You can change data in the fly in here. So if you notice something that was wrong. Okay. And so you can view it in a larger grid, and hopefully you'll still be able to see it. And so what's nice is you can see exactly what's in your import file. Yeah, so you can make sure you pull the right data.
So how did it know who the customer's name was? I'm assuming this is for a check and from a bank statement? No?
Sales receipt.
Oh, sales receipt.
Yeah.
Okay, the check there. Okay, sorry, I came in kind of late.
All right, and you can see there's a lot of fields that you can use. So, and we also support custom fields. And so then I like this because you can just do a gut check. I pulled the right file. And then we have support if you bring in text files, oftentimes it doesn't have a header on it. So you can uncheck that, and that will allow you to import it without a header. So then I'm just going to leave here. And then you hit the next button. Okay. And the reason why I'm getting this error is because the last time I imported a file, I used a different map. We save all the mappings by import type to make it easier for the user. And so, but you can have an unlimited number of import types, import maps. So I could select OK. And then in this case, I've named all of our fields the same as what's over here on the left-hand side, so I can say field match, and that will match all the fields. But what you do is in a real-life example, what you would do is you come in here, and these are this is the header row from your import file. So you would come in here and you'd select the right column header to match up to each of the QuickBooks fields. And then the other thing that's really powerful is you can come in here and say, for instance, these are all orders for today, but the website that you downloaded them from did not have, did not have an order date. So you can come in here and put in a static value. Or another thing that's very powerful is we work a lot with Concur. Concur has integration with QuickBooks and QuickBooks Online, but some of their clients are very large and have a lot of unique needs. And one of the things that oftentimes our clients want is they want a lot of data in the memo field. And so what you can do is you can come in here, instead of mapping one field, you could come over in here into the static value formula field, and just like doing a concatenate function in Excel, you can add multiple cells in here. You can also do, say for instance, for some reason, say the import file has tax in it and you want to break it out. You can do simple formulas in here that says take the data in this column minus the data in this column. So it's very powerful. So if you think your import file is not going to work, just take a look at these various options that you have. And then so what you would do is when we hit the next button, what I want you to do is take a look at the transaction date column, and you'll see. Okay. I'm unregistered because I deregistered it. But basically, so what happened is you come in here and you can see what would happen. I'm going to click the back button. And what I'm going to do is instead I'm going to change the memo field so you can see how it works. Okay, and so what you can do is you can view this in the larger grid here.
We're not seeing your larger grid. Can you scroll at the bottom and show us?
Yep. Okay, so basically this is, you can see all your QuickBooks fields listed across the top. So this is very important. So you can see how your data is going to go into QuickBooks before it even goes in. And so another thing I wanted to mention is when you hit next on the mapping screen, Transaction Pro goes through and makes sure that all the required fields are there. We check to make sure that the correct data type, we check for field lengths, we check to make sure you have proper permissions to save things like sales tax and things like that. So if you make a mistake in the mapping, you know, like for instance for the ship date, if you just had put text in there, you would get an error message that would tell you it's, you know, it's not the correct format. So we have a lot of pre-built-in validation even before the import starts into QuickBooks. So you can, and then you also can review this to see how the data is going to go into QuickBooks. And you can see this filled in here. This is a memo. You can see all the different, you know, all the different fields that are here. So then you hit the next button. And then Transaction Pro has the ability to set up new items on the fly for you. And so what you can do is you can, actually I'm going to go back here and show something that oftentimes when you set up a new company file, you might be bringing in balances. And so what, let's just assume these were invoices, say. And so what you could say is you could say in here, okay, I want all of my items to go to beginning balance, my beginning balance equity item. And so what would happen is then when all those transactions are imported, if you set up an item in QuickBooks that pointing to beginning balance equity, they would show up in that one item, all into that one item. So. Okay. And so then you can see that the item has been revised here. So you can see it's been revised. And then when you hit next, Transaction Pro will create items on the fly if you want it to. And so you can see, you know, you can say here, I want, if I don't find, if the item doesn't exist in QuickBooks, I want it to be created as a service item, and I always want it to go to construction income. And again, this is only on items that don't exist in QuickBooks. So if your import file, all the items existed, it would, you know, it would just use what's on the existing item in QuickBooks. And then you select the Finish button, and then it's going to import the data into QuickBooks.
I really like that you can do a couple items first and not have to do the whole 150 that you've that's on your list to test it out. Although I would hope that everyone would back up their QuickBooks before doing this.
I can't tell you how many people don't.
No,
Why would you do that?
And then if you know if you have your clients doing imports, what I always train them is this is your transaction log, your audit log. And so if in this case everything imported, if for some reason something didn't import, it would give you a reason as to why it didn't import. And then that way you could go and investigate, you know, what's wrong with the file. We catch probably 90% of the errors in the import file when you hit next on the mapping screen. But occasionally there are errors that happen when we try to save the transaction in QuickBooks. But what I always tell you know, pro advisors, consultants, if your clients are doing this, have them save this file and, you know, keep it until the next time that the bank reconciliations are done. So then that way, if something has gone wrong, you can point out to them because you have a full log of what they imported here, and you can point out to them, well, you know, you didn't map it right, or, you know, you imported the same file twice, you know, etc. And so this is just a really good, you know, really good thing to keep until you've closed out your books and accounts for the month.
nice, nice.
I'm not sure I'd want my customers using this.
Right.
Well, well, it depends. It all depends. We have some clients want to do it themselves, And then what happens is we have a partner network, and what a lot of these partner network members do is they'll set up Transaction Pro for the end client, for the client. And then what happens is they set up appointments with them to come in once a quarter and to review everything, to make sure that everything, everything looks okay in QuickBooks. And I will tell you, it's such a pleasure to talk to this group because my typical client is a small business owner that sells on eBay or PayPal and just went out and bought a copy of QuickBooks, at Staples. And so, my typical client is lucky that they have their sales tax set up right. And so they're learning QuickBooks, and they do figure it out. But it's usually where most people's pain points are is they don't understand how QuickBooks functions, and then they're trying to throw a third-party tool on top of it, and that's typically where where they have a lot of issues. But with this, what happens is once you have set up the import, there's a checkbox at the end that remains checked, and it basically saves all the settings for the next import. And so what happens is the next time that an end user comes in, all they're doing is just selecting the file and going through the actual review process before they import the data into QuickBooks.
I have a question. I'm sure this would never happen, but what would happen if the client screws up and imports the wrong file? Is there like an undo button, or they just have to go in and delete everything manually?
Well, what a lot of people will do is hopefully they've done a backup, but if they haven't done a backup, there's an option here where they can say, I want to replace. Oops, let me uncheck. There's an option here where there's an option down here that says replace transactions with matching reference numbers. And so what you could do is you could import the same file again, and then just say for instance they use the date incorrectly. You can change that. Or the other option is we do have a Transaction Pro deleter, which will allow users to go in and delete transactions, en masse.
But if they try to, say, import checks instead of sales receipts, I mean, I'm assuming because the fields probably don't match, they get some sort of warning or something?
That's correct. I mean, what typically will happen is, let me show you what will happen. That's a good question. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the transaction type to check, but I'm going to keep the same import file here. So I'm just going to go through, and when I hit next, you'll see it's trying to pull up the prior map, but you can see it's not pulling up that prior sales receipt map, and so it's not going to map anything. So all the settings are retained, by import type.
Okay.
So when you start all over, you would then go, oh, wait a minute, now it's not making sense.
Yeah, and then another thing that if you have clients that have multiple imports, and I'm hopefully going to get a blog post out this weekend, but we have what we call command line parameters. And so I have some clients that I used to manage every single month, and every single month they would need me to log in and help them. And so what I've done in that case is I've set up separate shortcuts on their desktop that basically says, okay, check. And they click on the Transaction Pro importer icon, has all the settings and everything memorized. Then I have other clients that have multiple sales imports. They might import from Amazon or eBay, and so the mappings are different. And so they don't have to make the the decision of which map to select. I do that for them right in the shortcut on their desktop. So it's pretty. You can make it a lot less user intervention if you're concerned that your client's gonna do something wrong. So that's a lot of consultants will do that with their clients. You just try and make it so they're not having to do as much thinking.
I have another question. I've used Carl Irvin's DTU data transfer facility.
Mm-hmm.
That's something. Would you need to buy the Transaction Pro exporter to get that same functionality to be able to, or can you actually send transactions from QuickBooks to you'd probably need to have the Transaction Pro exporter to get the transactions out of QuickBooks if you wanted to say set up a new QuickBooks company.
Right. What the issue with a lot of the canned reports in QuickBooks is they don't have all the detail. or they might have the customer information on one line and then the detail on another line, so it's not a true flat file. So the easiest way is to use a combination of our importer and exporter, and if you purchase both together, we have bundled pricing, as well as, or you can also purchase the importer, exporter, deleter. And it's very common. We've seen people use it a lot when companies have sold off part of their business. What I really like about our exporter is, let me close this out of here so you can see.
Well, the one thing I didn't like about the Carl Urban's product was it seemed like every year they had a different version you had to buy.
We don't do that.
Yeah, that's what I didn't really like about it, is it had all these different versions floating out there, trying to remember which one to use. It was kind of...
Yeah, I mean, it is, it is a little tricky because of the fact that every year is different in what Intuit adds. And so I really like this because you can do a lot of filtering. So say, for instance, I had someone call. Can you still see my screen? Probably not, right?
No.
Okay. All right.
And like every other app for QuickBooks, this doesn't work on the QuickBooks for Mac version.
Yeah, what the issue is Intuit never developed a QuickBooks API for QuickBooks for Mac. I think my own personal opinion is they're trying to move all those QuickBooks for Mac users to QuickBooks Online. So that's...
It won't happen.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, what type of customer support do we get if we purchase the importer?
We provide unlimited email support, and that with all of our products. And then if you do need us to log in, we do offer premium phone support. So, but this group will probably not have. I will tell you, 95% of our support is around how QuickBooks works. If you can't do it, like we'll get people that'll try to import journal entries that has an account receivable. They can't understand why it won't save, and it's because you need a name on a journal entry when you have an AR account. It's things like that. But what's very powerful, if you're creating a new QuickBooks company file, you can, with the Transaction Pro Exporter, you can say, I only want unpaid invoices, and you can pull just only the unpaid invoices. So it's pretty powerful. And then we've added, we have a lot of tax accountants that use our exporter, and they actually they'll use the transaction detail report, and they'll use the filters in order to get just the accounts that they need. And then it has all the detail, the split lines. You know how when you run a detail report, it doesn't show the detail, just show the split line.
So
the setup on this is pretty easy then, right? Because I'm very interested. I want to purchase it. I recently got a client that is getting audited with the IRS, and he doesn't have a bank account anymore. So they got the bank statements. So I have about 3 years of bank statements. So I thought this would be great, the importer here, to use and get all the transactions into QuickBooks.
Yep. The only thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to somehow get the data that's in the PDF format out to Excel. And so what a lot of people will do is they'll just use an PDF to Excel converter, and they'll have the PDF converted to Excel. And you might need to clean it up a little bit because you don't want the bank name at the top, and you don't want the address at the top. But you can typically just remove data at the top and at the bottom, and then it'll give you more raw data, and you can then use that Excel file with the Transaction Pro importer.
I have a question on the exporter. It seems like with expand reports going out of business, it would seem like if you wanted to get more data from a pivot table, you could get probably more data from using the exporter, right?
That's correct.
And then you'd have more fields. You could do a deeper analysis with, say, pivot tables and charts, but since you have access to more data.
Yep. We just don't export a lot of reports. We export the transaction detail report, and then the payroll detail report, and I think there's another one here that we export.
Do you export the tables?
We just export it as a flat file.
Okay, but you do have. I mean, because I know, I think it's some reports have seen you actually have access to the views. I think that's with the enterprise custom views. You have access to the tables the views of the tables that are in there, so you'd have more data.
Yeah, this is just raw data. And then the other thing that's nice too is just like with the Transaction Pro Exporter, you can do a mapping. And so what this is used to move data between QuickBooks company files, but the most common use is if you have a client that's using a fulfillment center and they need to have the ability to send orders to their warehouse. What they can do is they can come in here, they can select their orders, and then they can set a mapping, because some of these fulfillment warehouses will want the data in a certain order. And they might want a user-defined field to identify which company that file is coming from. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. You can also export by class. A lot of people are using that if they have multiple warehouses to export out by the class. And you can export by account.
About the classes, I played with. I've already bought Transaction Pro, and I played with exporting out of one QuickBooks file and then re-importing back into the same QuickBooks file.
Okay.
And or starting a new QuickBooks file actually. So when it exported the class names, one of the class names was unclassified. Is it really a class name? It's where QuickBooks puts anything that does not have a class.
Okay.
So what it did is it set up a class called unclassified. And
okay.
So I didn't know. So that got me curious about when you say list items and you say do not add an account.
Mm-hmm.
So I say do not add a new account. Is that the way I should read that? And
That's
then
correct.
if it finds an account that doesn't exist, does it stop and go, I don't know what to do here. Can you select another account?
Yep.
Or what happens?
Let me show you. I'll show you.
Okay.
Here. And I'm just loading the Transaction Pro importer. What happens is when we first start the product, we check the chart of accounts, and we check for the activation. So I'm just going to I'm going to screen share again. Okay. All right. And so let's do we'll do a journal entry.
Yeah, that's what I was playing with.
I'm struggling. I've had some issues since I've upgraded my computer to Windows 8.1, and I don't know. I haven't had the chance to play around with it, but
It's 8.1. That's the problem.
yeah, some just really fluky. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here, and I'm going to say the account is Karen Magno, because hopefully I haven't set up an account called that.
Good idea.
Okay, and we'll just import this one journal entry. Oops, let me go back. On the options, we have to select do not add new accounts.
Okay.
Select
Yeah, there isn't a question for class code right there,
no.
but that would be a wish.
Yeah, we'll add that. Okay. So we're going to hit the next button.
Yeah.
And then what will happen is you'll see it's going to be valid. It's checking to see if all accounts exist.
Right.
And it gave you an error message saying that some required fields are missing values. This is a very similar error message that you will get if, say, for instance, you mapped a same number to the date. It would tell you that it's looking for a date. And so you can see here, it tells you neither one of these accounts exist in QuickBooks. And then at that point, you could either go into QuickBooks and add the accounts, or you could go in and edit your import file.
How do I know what wasn't missing or what's missing?
Oh, what's ever on the screen here. In this case, both accounts were missing. Can you see my screen?
Well, I see it's
red. Oh, wait, it's a pop-up. Hold on.
Okay.
I apologize.
Isn't there a way to show you your entire screen, pop-ups and everything? No?
No, pop-ups come up funny sometimes. Sometimes they don't come up at all.
Yeah, I can't get it to come up at all. But let me show you in the help. Let me see if I can get the help file to come up and see if I can show it to you there. Actually, I'll show it to you. Let me see if I can get it to come up on the blog, and I'll show you.
So then, can you on the fly change it?
Yep, you can change it right. You can actually change data. You can come back here, and you can change the data in here. So, like for instance, I'm pretty sure I have a checking account in here. And just so you know, you can use account numbers or account names for your accounts. So hopefully this will.
Yeah, I haven't tried one where some of the account numbers were missing to see what.
Okay, hold on. I'm just going to show you on the blog. Let me just screen share the blog. Okay. All right. So, so how to learn what options do? We have do not add new list items.
Okay.
Okay, and so what would happen? Okay, so what would happen is you would get an error message that looks something similar to this right here. So you can see list missing in QuickBooks. In the first field, it says account name. The value says dues and subscriptions, and then it just says the account does not exist in QuickBooks. And you can actually save that out to Excel. So if for some reason you had a, you had a lot of accounts that didn't exist, you could just print this, print this out or save it out to Excel.
Okay, but it doesn't have the chart in the background to let you scroll and find another account.
No, it does not.
That would be cool, since it's already read the chart if it were in some sort of a table or something.
I can ask.
I have a question. What's probably the most 3 to 5 common uses of Transaction Pro importer or exporter?
For the import side, it's typically more on the sale. People will import from their e-commerce websites. It's a very common thing that they'll do. We have a lot of people, which are surprised, actually use Transaction Pro to print checks. They may have like a commission system that's external to QuickBooks, and what they'll do is they'll actually import their commission checks, and they'll print them out through right out through QuickBooks. And then another common use is point of sale systems. What will happen is a lot of users will import a daily sales receipt or a journal entry to get the data into QuickBooks. And then
how about data conversion? Say, for example, you've got a Sage or a Peachtree data that you want to, backfill into QuickBooks. Assuming you can get the data out of the transaction data out of Peachtree, could you use it?
Exactly. Yep. And we have a lot of people. They do that a lot, as part of their business. And it's just a word of advice. Don't ever quote a fixed price on a data conversion, because the client never tells you everything. And like for instance, if you are going to do a data conversion, reach out on LinkedIn, because a lot of times people will say, like for instance, my first data conversion that I did when I started working at Transaction Pro was from NetSuite to QuickBooks. And of course, no one told me, and I never used NetSuite before. NetSuite uses accounts on sales transactions. What a mess. How to convert all the accounts into items in order to import the sales transactions into QuickBooks.
Wow.
So it's things like, it's very doable, but when you don't know that going in, it's very hard to price it.
Absolutely. Karen, I'm going to stop you here. Can we look at the online version?
Sure.
We're running out of time here. I wanted to make sure that we got a quick run through with that.
Okay. All right. So basically, you can access, I'm going to open up QuickBooks Online here too. And we went global with QuickBooks Online a couple weeks ago. And so we aren't on the various app centers yet, but it is made available to all foreign users. And I think we have about, looking at the billing, we have probably about 20 different countries that are represented already as paying users.
That's fantastic.
So, all right. So I don't know how many of you are using apps with QuickBooks Online. Unfortunately, this is a classic company, but you should be able to access the applications from right over here. So that's typically where you access it. And then what it does is it's not loading, but you can also go directly to the developer's website. They've had some issues with that down arrow and things not loading. So what would happen is you can launch Transaction Pro right from within QuickBooks Online. And you can see here we have all help embedded in here. We have a movie video. We have a sample file that you can download that you don't have to use, but some people like to use that as a template to have their clients copy the data into. And then we have another training video down here. And so basically what you do is you just select a file. And let's see. All right, so you select your Excel file, and then or CSV, and you upload your file. And this is being uploaded to our server. We don't retain any of the data, just we have to upload it temporarily. And in this case, this has a lot of different import types on it. So we have in our sample file, we have a lot of, all the different import types. So let's say I want to import invoices. It's a very similar feel to the desktop importer, but it's just in a web browser. And so then, in this case, I want to select an import type of invoices. So on the first screen of Transaction Pro, you selected the file and you selected the import type. And what's happening here is we're loading the file. And just like with Transaction Pro Importer, you can have multiple maps. So you can set multiple mappings. And so what happens here is you can come in here and you can select fields that you want to map in the drop-down. So in this case, our column headers match, but they don't need to match. So I'm just going to map the required fields. So we guide people along, and anything that's got an asterisk next to it at a minimum is required. And then you can map a price. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this map. Because I may have multiple sites that I'm importing from. So I'm going to save the map. And then what's going to happen is just like in Transaction Pro, you can see how your data is going to marry up to each of the QuickBooks fields. So across the top here, you can see, okay, the reference number is the invoice number. Here's the customer. I only mapped a few fields. And then you can see here's the product or service, and then here's the amount that's going to be imported. And then also embedded in the app, which I wish more people looked at. We basically try, looking at the import type. We said, we know that you're importing invoices. So basically, we tell them, if you're importing, products and services, and you have a sub item to put products, colon widget. So item colon sub item basically.
Right.
And then just like with the desktop importer, we give users the ability to, they can import all, or they can just import, say, the first transaction. And actually, I'm going to take a look at our options screen here to see what we have selected. So just like within the desktop importer. So I'm going to let QuickBooks auto-assign invoice numbers. Sorry about that. And then we also have cross-referencing capability within on the customer side and the vendor side. So say, for instance, you're importing from a web store and the names don't match up. So I'm going to select Save. So the only thing I selected was auto-assign invoice numbers. And then I'm just going to import this first transaction here. Oops. There's 3 lines on this. I'm going to select Import. Select OK. And we have the same data validation built in here where we check for all the required fields. We check to make sure that the data type's correct. So if you have made a mistake in the mapping, even before you start the import, it will give you an error message. And so you can see here, this is an error log and transaction log. You can see it imported. If for some reason it didn't import, you have a detailed reason why. You can come over here into QuickBooks, and then you look on your recent transactions. We should see an invoice for Janice Johnson.
There it is. Nice.
So we don't have to go through the sync manager or any crap like that.
Yeah.
I hate the sync manager. I hate it.
Does it ever work?
Yep. Well, let me just give you, set your expectations with the App Center. Once once you get signed up, it's fine. Occasionally, we have had issues with Intuit IDs, and when that happens, it's not fun. I mean, it usually takes, Intuit's very responsive, but we have had some issues with Intuit IDs, and in all cases they've been able to resolve it. But when that happens, just contact the vendor or contact Intuit directly, and they'll get it resolved for you. But that's typically once you've signed up for an app on the App Center, you're good. But in the 1 in 1,000 time that someone has an issue, it typically, it's not fun to resolve.
I think we've all been through that Intuit ID problem.
Oh, yeah.
Don't change it. Never. Never.
Never, ever.
That's the answer.
I'd love for that to be the answer. Sometimes you have no choice.
I have a question. I use Xero, for example, and I'm able to import native CSV files into Xero. For example, if I've got bank transactions I want to backfill into the database. I've been told that Intuit doesn't do that, or QBO doesn't do that. You need to use Transaction Pro Importer. Is that true, or do you know?
Yep, but let me set your expectation on that as well. What's happened is this is a newer, the QuickBooks API came out of beta in 2011. And so as a result, not all fields and transaction types are supported. One of the transaction types that's not currently supported is deposits. And so so we really can't have a bank statement import. And so what we tell end users is break your file into two, import your check transactions as one import, and then go into QuickBooks Online, set up products or services that match your account structure in QuickBooks Online, and then import the deposit transactions as sales receipts. It's the only way.
Yeah.
Well, what happens? Well, if you're online, you can't back it up before you try it.
Right, which is why we have the ability here. You only import the first few lines, and then you go into QuickBooks Online and take a look.
Oh, it's a little test. Okay.
Yeah.
That's smart.
And just so you know, we have a Transaction Pro deleter, and actually the most common use of it is someone has set up another third-party tool, not our own. And what's happened is the implementation, it hasn't gone right. They've maybe set it up with wrong accounts, and they just haven't set it up right. And they've gone along for a whole quarter with that other third-party application due to no fault of the app vendor, just because it wasn't set up correctly. They have a whole quarter's worth of, say, inventory transactions that aren't posting to the proper accounts. And so we've had a lot of those types of users come over and use our Transaction Pro deleter to delete masses of transactions from QuickBooks Online.
Got it. So that's what you would need to do if you imported incorrectly into QuickBooks Online, and you didn't just import the couple lines, you did the whole list and ended up doing them wrong.
Right.
Then you'd have to go back and do the deleter and then come back and import it correctly.
Yeah. See, what the issue is the way that the API is written is you're not passing the transactions in a batch. You're just passing them one by one. So there's really no log that we have that could just go in and say just pull back this whole import. There's really no way for us to do that.
Got it.
If I already bought the importer and the exporter, I can get the deleter all by itself, right?
Yep.
Okay, because I didn't notice it then.
Sarah, speak up.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, for some reason my microphone quit working a couple months ago. It's barely working.
You can try Linda's solution, reload your computer.
Oh, goodness. Well, I've been real happy with it. It's working beautifully for me. I wanted to see how it would work if somebody wanted to start a brand new data file. And so I exported all the lists and started a fresh, clean data file. And then I used my utility, my trial balance exporter utility, to export 12 monthly journal entries to represent the history. And then my program puts it in 12 columns. So what I had to do is I just had to break it up into 12 sheets. But it worked beautifully. I just went in and did one journal entry at a time, and then I have all the history. And I was glad to see how you did the bringing in the open payables and receivables at the beginning or the end of the last period. I think with the two together, this is a fantastic tool.
Just to give you an idea, we have some partners that we've worked with over the years, and they've built their practice entirely around Transaction Pro Importer. They're doing data conversions, they're doing setups, for clients. There's just, if you put your shingle out there, if you put out on your blog, I can give you a good example. Risa McKenzie, she's put out on her blog about how she's used Transaction Pro Importer. And she gets a lot of leads on it. A lot of people. We have an affiliate program, and so we can see all the people that come through from her website to ours. So we know it's very, very common. And it's just people are just too busy to implement a new system. The system isn't very hard, but they just want someone to walk them through it. And that there's people that are looking for it all the time. If it's something if you have an affinity for and you like to do, just write a couple blog posts on it. It's unbelievable how many people are just searching, import bank statements, import, e-commerce. And then the other thing is if you have an existing client, ask them where you're spending all your time doing your data entry, and then work backwards. I talked to someone on the phone that had been using our importer for probably about 4 or 5 years, and we were just chatting, and she's like, "Oh, I got to get off the phone. I got to import all these vendor bills." I'm like, why are you doing that? And she goes, "Well, they send it to us via paper." And I said, "How many vendors do you have?" She goes, "We just deal with one." I said, "Call the vendor, see if they'll send it to you in a CSV." They sent it to her in a CSV. Something that was previously taking her 12 hours a month to enter all these vendor bills, she has imported in 15 minutes.
Wow.
So, and your clients will love you for that. And I mean, even if, say for instance you download a file and it's not, maybe it doesn't have all the data, or maybe it doesn't, maybe it's not in the exact proper format. If you're good with Excel, just write them a macro. And then they can get the data into QuickBooks. So I mean that's another big big value add that people are always looking for. And we also will import directly from Access. So if you're comfortable with Access, you can dump the data into Access and write a query in there. So it's for a lot of our partners, it's been a big part of their business because it's a big pain point. It's a very low entry, $200. I mean, it's a perpetual license. So for a lot of companies, it's really hard to argue when you're saving 12 hours a month, to shell out $200.
Do you have a listing of some of these companies on your website if I wanted to contact them just to see what they're doing?
Our partners, yep. If you go to our
Let's bring up your website.
Okay. I think I have to screen share that.
Yay. Brand new website. You had it.
Oh, I have it. Okay. All right. So here's our partner network here.
I was a data analyst in a prior life.
Lost it. You did have it. It flashed and now it's away.
Okay. Let me try it again. I'm still getting used to the new website myself.
It's pretty.
So basically, here's a bunch of our partners here, if you ever need, Fran Reed, I know she does a lot of Excel work. She's helped a lot of clients. Nancy Gomez, I know, does a lot of data conversion type work.
Yes, she does.
Yeah. And then,
Karen, could you scrape that URL and put it in chat? I will put that in the description at the end. Perfect.
If anyone's interested, you can just email me. Oops, chat. Okay, there we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. And so it just all depends, and you can take a look at some of their bios, and you can get an idea as to what they specialize in, and get an idea. Maybe you might want to do something similar. With your practice, and we have a lot of these. Partners are actually very avid QuickBooks Online users as well, and so they work with both QuickBooks Online as well as they work, with the desktop. And a big need, I will tell you, for end users is they need to get their sales tax into QuickBooks properly, and that's where a lot of these small companies struggle. Is they can do the imports, but they're not setting up the sales tax properly. They don't set up in the other system correctly. So when it flows through our application, it just creates a mess. So there's just a lot of value adds. It's to companies that pro advisors and consultants can provide. So is anyone here going to Scaling New Heights this year?
I don't think anyone in the hangout. We had Brandon last week that let us know he'll be at Scaling New Heights.
They're televising. They're streaming the keynote speeches though.
Yep.
So you can go to the NAN website and sign up for be able to. It's like 8 a.m. Central Time, so I think it's like 6 o'clock Pacific Time. So.
Yeah, and then they're also doing. They have. Joe's doing a lot of webinars for some of the exhibitors. So if you keep an eye on your emails, they've been sending out a lot of emails about different exhibitors and some of the presentations that they're doing. So I think there'll be a fair amount of those. Probably will continue even after the conference.
Yeah, on June 10th he's doing one on his QuickBooks and accounting program or QuickBooks Online, and I think it's talking about the different apps that add in. So. You can also sign. I think you can go to Scaling New Heights and sign up there, or maybe NAN.
So to become an affiliate, we just email you directly?
Yes.
Or email someone in your...
Yep. You can just, my emails, you can either email sales@transactionpro.com or my email is just Karen@transactionpro.com. I'll put it in the chat. We actually have two different programs. We have our partner program, which I do not do any consulting at all anymore. None of us within the company do. We push everyone to the partner page. If it's something really technical, if it might potentially be an issue with the QuickBooks company file, or it might potentially be an issue with our software, we will log in. But if someone needs help, with setting up QuickBooks or setting up Transaction Pro, they have specific questions. We get a lot of people that call us and want to pick our brains. Should I go with QuickBooks Online? Should I go with QuickBooks Pro? We just say, here's our consultant list. Go out and contact them. And it's created a lot of great opportunities for the people on this list, as well as we also do have just an affiliate program where if you don't want to be a resource for our clients, maybe you don't have the time, to do it. If you have a blog, like Risa McKenzie does, we can give you an affiliate link that you can put on your blog, and similar to what I think Seth David is doing with the School of Bookkeeping, it tracks how many users come to the site and purchase, and right. So that can be an additional revenue stream as well.
I have a question. Would you say that the demand is increasing or about the same or decreasing for this kind of service?
I would say it's increasing. What's really interesting that I'm finding is I am seeing a lot of people downgrading from a more enterprise form of software to QuickBooks.
Yeah, I just had I had a former client call me yesterday and was looking at doing that.
Mm-hmm. And then there's a lot of, I talk to a lot of, I cannot believe the very, very large companies that use QuickBooks. And what happens is I think they have just become so accustomed to it. They don't want to retrain their staff. They also don't maybe not have the money in the budget. I mean, I started out as an accountant and CPA. I know most companies, accounting software, the budget is like way down here. So a lot of times they'll stay with QuickBooks and they just keep putting all these band-aids on it. And so they'll go out and they'll purchase an ERP system that won't talk to QuickBooks, but it works perfectly fine for them. And then they have to figure out a way to get the data into QuickBooks. So I think it's actually our business. We've actually trended up every single year, and I think a lot of it too is the fact that there's a lot of new businesses coming into play. A lot of people decided, I've had it with being laid off multiple times. I want to go out and raise my own shingle out there, or it might just be someone has a new idea and starts a new company. We have just to give you an idea, we have companies like Fitbit that use our tool, Uber, Constant Contact. What?
Fitbit, that's that one with the tracking on the wrist?
Exactly.
I just bought that. That's an interesting product.
Yep, and then Demand Force, which is part of Intuit, uses our tool. So it's just an add-on. And I mean, I can't. I'm drawing a blank as to his name now. But there's a gentleman that's out in the Napa Valley area, and what he does is he just specializes in wineries. And he's affiliated himself with a lot of these wineries, and he goes on sales calls with them. And so whenever they implement a new winery, he's the one that does the setup of Transaction Pro Importer. And so he gets a few hours consulting out of doing that. And I mean, it's not that hard because, you know, the mapping's never going to change. So he's got everything all set up in his toolbox. He just installs it on their computer, gives them a little training, and, you know, you go from there. I mean, I cannot tell you the large software companies that use our tool as well. So
nice, nice. Well, Karen, we are just about out of time. This has been a great demo. Lots of good information. Thank you very much. I will put your, now do you want your email address on the descriptions or just your Transaction Pro website?
just put the Transaction Pro website would be great.
Okay, perfect, perfect. And is there anything else that anyone would like to ask Karen before we leave?
No, but I'd like to tell Linda to quit running over nails.
Linda joined us today from the tire repair shop. What a dedicated hangout. Unmute, Linda. Unmute. Or is there too much noise back there?
Probably a lot of drilling of tires, I would think.
That's
Probably
great.
very noisy.
Well, thank you again, everyone. This has been great, and we will see you next week. Thank you very much, Karen.
Thank you, Gina.
All righty.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.